What is everybody? Daniel Rock 08 back once again on our video. 2006 year in review continues with TNA Lockdown. A way to cross the line. No originality. It's 6 sides of steel, baby. By the way, look at this cover of the DVD. Now look at Final Resolution. Notice the difference? No, it's basically Sting. It's the same fucking thing. Except this thing is pointing a bat, and this thing has the bat on his shoulders. Hey, TNA, couldn't you have done a different fucking cover for your DVDs? Anyways, let's talk about TNA Lockdown, 6 Sides of Steel. Lockdown was always one of my favorite pay-per-views for TNA. Lockdown 2009 was the first pay-per-view I actually was able to convince my dad to purchase. But I always liked Lockdown. The whole premise of the entire show being in steel cage matches throughout the entire show was intriguing. And it was so intriguing and it was so cool, WWE decided to steal the idea and do Hell in a Cell pay-per-views with it. But anyways, Lockdown, I always thought it was like you had Slammiversary, you had Bound for Glory, and I thought your third big show was Lockdown. Your fourth big show maybe was Destination X, I felt. But let's talk about Lockdown 2006. For me personally, this is one of the best TNA pay-per-views that there is. Maybe this and Bound for Glory 06 as well. TNA was at its apex. But TNA's roster got even bigger when they got Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. Holla if you hear me. Big Papa Pump would have a way better career than he ever could fucking have in the WWE. He looked legitimate. He looked like a monster. His promos alone made him a fucking megastar in TNA. This was Big Papa Pump. This was the Scott Steiner we knew and loved. This was the Scott Steiner we deserved to have in WWE. But I digress. Let's kick off with Lockdown. Can they compete with WrestleMania 22 and do a decent job? Match quality wise, at least, because they sure as fuck not going to do it in pay-per-view buys. So anyways, we start off with Team Japan taking on Team USA. Team Japan is Tanaka, Black Tiger, and Hiroki Goto. They take on USA, Sanjay Dutt, Alex Shelley, and Jay Lethal. Not sure Dutt is there because he's the player from the Himalayas, but I digress. This is an International X Division Cup match. This is a fine 6-man tag team World Cup match. TNA always did this with their X Division. They always put their X Division guys, as many X Division guys they could possibly do, toss them out there, do some sort of international flavor deal, and they would go out there and they would have a fun opener. And this is a fun opener as Team Japan gets the victory over Team USA. I give it a 6 out of 10, a solid opener. Next up, we have the former tag team of Triple X going at it. It is Low Ki, now known as Senshi, defeating Christopher Daniels in a fine match. A 6 out of 10. Senshi using the feet to his advantage, using his feet on the ropes to his advantage, and getting the 1-2-3 over Christopher Daniels. Christopher Daniels being one of the best superstars never to be in the WWE, along with Jay Lethal, Abyss, Marcy Machine Guns, so on and so forth. Senshi, good match. He gets the victory. A 6 out of 10. Not sure why he's now Senshi and not Low Ki anymore. I guess maybe he wanted to have a different TNA name and separate the two, but I digress. Anyways, we then get Chris Sabin. He wins the escape match, defeating Petey Williams, Elix Skipper, Chase Stevens. Who the fuck is Chase Stevens? Shark Boy and Puma. Much like the former tag team X Division match, This is more or less the same, except it's escape the cage rules. This is a fine X Division match. Again, TNA always did this with their X Divisionists. They grabbed as many as they can, put as many as they can on the show, and have at it. WWE does this a lot with WrestleMania and Royal Rumble and so on and so forth, as they just try to get everyone on the card as much as possible. TNA did this quite a lot, as this is the second match that had more than 2 people in it, and it's damn sure not the last. Chris Sabin gets the win after a lot of interference gone backfire when Team Canada's his the manager's name escapes my mind right now. But it backfires and Sapin capitalizes. I give it a 7. Fine dandy of a match. Samoa Joe defeats Sabu to retain his X Division Championship. This is a hard-hitting match, and it is exactly what you'd expect from the ultimate Samoan submission machine and the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal Sabu. This was an okay match. Could have been way better, but could have been a lot worse considering it is Sabu. This was one of the funner Sabu matches I've seen. The best Sabu matches I think he had would be his matches with Taz and his match with John Cena from that WWE ECW crossover that they did. Funny thing with Sabu, he was not in TNA. He just came back from TNA, but he will be gone sooner day after when he goes back to WWE and joins WWE. Can't talk, can't think straight. He joins WWE and does the extremely crappy wrestling reboot shit. 6 on 10. Could have been better. Could have been a lot worse. Samoa Joe with the victory and retains his X Division Championship. Team 3D defeats Team Canada in a flag match. It was your typical Team 3D match. 6 out of 10. Next up, we get one of the finest matches in TNA you're going to get. Christian Cage taking on Abyss to retain. It's all for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And, you know, they had to follow up. They had to follow up on the incredible hardcore match between Edge and Mick Foley. So could Christian and Abyss, after seeing that hardcore match from WrestleMania, can they topple it? Well, they tried every goddamn way they possibly could. And, you know, if Edge and Mick Foley wasn't WrestleMania match, I would say this match equaled it. But because that was WrestleMania, it just completely drowns this match out. But this match is still great. There's a lot of cool shit in this. Abyss stalking Christian Cage's wife, harassing her, harassing his family, but it's done in a great way. He chokes him out in a swimming pool, and James Mitchell says you can't win the title you cannot win the championship from a dead guy. Christian threw everything he could possibly muster out with a top of the cage frog splash. He can't get him there. He can't get him by slamming him on a bunch of thumbtacks. But it is the unprettier on top of the thumbtacks that duns Abyss in. Christian Cage with his unprettier on the thumbtacks. It's as gruesome as the time Mick Foley took the pedigree from Triple H at Royal Rumble 2000. It's the exact same spot. Christian Cage gets the victory, retains, and Abyss's entire body is just filled with thumbtacks. This match is almost as good as Edge versus Mick Foley. They tried everything to get your mind off of that match and get your mind onto this. And they damn near do it. I give it an 8.5. One of the finest matches you're going to get to ever see from Christian. Christian had his finest time of his finest His TNA run was the finest moments he ever had. This was the peak of Captain Charisma. Christian could do no wrong in TNA. Maybe he should have stayed in TNA. Maybe he should have stayed and he could have had many, many more matches, even though he was getting paid a hell of a lot less. But man, the career he had in TNA, the run he had was marvelous. He was the reason why I kept choosing Impact over Raw during this time period. And once when Kurt Angle gets there, it made that choice even more easier. Next up, it's the Lethal Lockdown. It's Stinger's Warriors taking on Team Jarrett. Lethal Lockdown. What is Lethal Lockdown? It's War Games, but one ring with a roof that has weapons once when every single person's in the ring, and you can win by pinfall and submission instead of just surrender or submit. This is a great match. It's really hard to review a match like a War Games, like a Lethal Lockdown, like a Royal Rumble, like an Elimination Chamber match, but so on and so forth. So we start out with AJ Styles and Chris Harris, and then James Storms get in, and then Rhino gets in, Jeff Jarrett gets in, and then hold up, my bad, and then Ron Simmons, Ron Killings. Ron Simmons. Damn. Ron Killings. And then Jeff Jarrett. And then Sting. And then Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. So on and so forth. AJ Styles. Once when the roof has descended, and once when they got on top, Chris Harris and AJ Styles, James Storm, they are on top of the roof. And AJ Styles, he has this big ass ladder, and he climbs the fucking ladder. Then he fucking monkey fucking he like jumps on this truss like it's fucking monkey bars, and he's fucking on the monkey, like doing monkey bars on this truss. He is 50 feet in the air, goddammit, and he does a marvelous splash on top of the roof of the cage through a table onto James Storm. This was a great fucking cool bump, and he will only topple himself the following year when he jumps off of the cage. But this was fine. You have 8 of the finest TNA talents there is, plus Jeff Jarrett. You have just great sequences here. I'm giving it another 8.5 out of 10. Overall, Lockdown 2006 is one of the finest shows you're going to get. Stinger's Warriors, in the end, do get the pin. They get the submission on as Sting gets his Scorpion Deathlock onto Chris Harris. This was still a fun match. And the show overall is fantastic. Forgot to tell you what happened in the match. Anyways, Lockdown 2006, I give it a 7 out of 10. It's a fine show overall, one of the finest TNA shows. There's not a damn bad match in this. The only thing I would skip would be the arm wrestling shit between LAX and James Gang. Nothing more than just shit. But other than that, this is a fine show. 7 out of 10. And I'll catch you next time for Backlash when Shawn Michaels teams up with God to take on the McMahons. Good gravy. Goodbye.